Hello and welcome back to Don't Press Play, the show where we press play so you don't have to. This week we are taking a trip down Elm Street for the very first time, but we're not starting with the original. We are starting with A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Now we're starting with Dream Warriors because I think personally it's the best in the franchise, and I just think it is the best place to kick this off. So, with that being said, grab your hypnosil, grab your dream journals, grab your dream warriors, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep. Let's roll the trailers.
Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, gonna stay up late. 9, 10.
A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Freddy's just around the corner.
So, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. The story so far, we've had the original, which we all know the story for. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. You have Nancy Thompson, the heroine of the movie. She and her friends are plagued with nightmares of a guy in a dirty red and green sweater and claws her fingers. And we then come to learn that this is Freddy Krueger, a real life man who was accused of murdering children in the neighborhood. He got away with his crimes, so the parents of Elm Street chased him down and ultimately burnt him alive in his boiler room. Then Freddy comes back once the kids have all grown up, and to take revenge on them, he starts murdering them through their dreams. Absolutely iconic piece of horror cinema from the amazing Wes Craven. The original is kind of gold star. You can't really say anything about the original that hasn't already been said. It's an absolute fantastic blast of a film. So solid, so great. It's kind of a testament to physical effects in horror and how important they are, because it is 99% all physically made, and the results are absolutely insane, especially iconic shot of Freddy coming through the wall where he's wearing the spandex. Not wearing the spandex, Jesus Christ. The wall made out of spandex material, and, the guy just pushing himself through. So effective. And yeah, now Meryl Streep 1, can't really say much about negatively or positively. It's just a fantastic film. Then the story continues. I don't know the timeline of it, but now on Elm Street 2, a new kid on the block, Jesse, lives in 1420 Elm Street, and he begins to have nightmares of the same man. And this time, Freddy starts to manifest himself through Jesse and becomes a physical entity away from the dreams. And it's got quite a homoerotic subtext to it. And yeah, and Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is probably, I would say, the scariest film in the franchise. It's just that it's like a weird, dirty, like, I don't know, it's just like a weird, dirty, like, gay flick. I absolutely adore Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I adore Mark Patterson, and yeah, absolutely love A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So this leaves us to A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, where I think New Line Cinema wanted to kind of go big or go home, and they went really big with this film. Yeah, my first kind of reaction to my first experience with An Out on Elm Street 3, I believe it was. I watched it on my own in my bedroom and yeah, absolutely terrifying. I just remember this film being the scariest one of them all when I watched it as a child. As well, it was back in the day when the DVD cases were they were the red ones with Freddy Krueger on the front. I might post them up on Instagram because I think they were like scarier than the actual film itself at some points. But yeah, my original kind of viewing was yeah, really scary Freddy Krueger film. And then it wasn't until I rewatched it when I was a teenager that this film especially connected with me massively. I really do hold this film very, very dear to my heart. I don't even know why I connected with it so much, but I think the strong heroines in this film, you know, you've got Kristen, you've got Nancy Thompson coming back, and I don't know, it's that kind of fight for survival and that group like psychosis and fight is I don't know, something that I've really, really connected with in this film. Um, and I mean, let's just the elephant in the room. The opening scene of this film is just absolutely phenomenal. You've got Kristen building a Freddy Krueger house out of kind of newspapers and wooden sticks, with Dokken into the fire playing. She starts to nod off and then wakes back up and then takes some coffee granules and knocks it back with a Diet Coke. Like, she's fucking hardcore. Hardcore is our Kristen, who's played by a very young Patricia Arquette. And she falls asleep and then she wakes back up and then she realizes that, you know, oh, nearly fell asleep. Her mum comes back, who is a fantastic actress. And, you know, she says that, you know, you need to go to bed, Kristen. It's time to go to bed. So she falls asleep, and then the bed kind of transforms, and the bed is now outside of the house of 1428 Elm Street, which we then also learn that was the house that she was creating in the beginning of the film. And then this nightmare sequence is probably one of the strongest in the franchise. It's absolutely nightmare fuel. So she goes through this house, and it's Nancy's house, but it's decrepit and it's like abandoned. There is a rotting animal on the table, like, she is and she's looking for a little girl who's run in there, and this little girl looks very much like the little girl from Leatherface 3, because I thought they were the same child, but they're not. Anyway, so she's running through this house and then things start to go crazy. So the floor turns to blood at one point and she can't run through it. And then there's a room with loads of kids that have hung themselves. And then probably the scariest shot of Freddy Krueger in the entire franchise when we see him running through the corner while she's stuck in the mud. And it's like a silhouette and it's all blue and he's got his claw out. That scene in particular absolutely scared the living shit out of me as a child. And I think that's like the scariest scene of Freddy Krueger ever. Because obviously Freddy gets quite unscary as the films go on. So I think that was probably the last scary shot of Freddy Krueger we have in cinema, but like absolutely fine by me because I think it's fantastic. Um, so I absolutely love, love, love that scene. And then yeah, and then she wakes back up and then surprise, surprise, she is still in the dream and it looks as if she is trying to harm herself. And it's actually Freddy in the mirror, and it's amazing physical effects where the taps turn into a Freddy Krueger glove and slice her wrists. Now, that is just the opening scene of this film, and that really sets the tone for how like fantastic this film is. I think the cast is absolutely fantastic, and this film has stakes. Like, I think this film should be a precedent of if you're going to make a sequel, like, this is how you do it. This film works so well because it's all about the world building and the lore that it drops, and like it gives you just enough to build the world, and it leaves so much room for interpretation and for other places for the franchise to go, which obviously we know now that An Nightmare on Elm Street just absolutely spiraled out of control after this one. But I don't think that's Nightmare on Elm Street 3's fault. I think that's like greedy Hollywood producers' fault. Because Nightmare on Elm Street 3 to me is like a love letter to the fans. I think it is just exactly what we wanted. And yes, we have Nancy Thompson back, and we kind of have this entire movie with Nancy being like such a heroine and like fighting in the dreams with Kristen and stuff like that. And then, you know, obviously towards the end, they think they've beaten Freddy Krueger, and you just think, oh, like you feel so amazing, you feel so happy. And then Nancy's dad crosses over and he's like, "It's me, honey." And then it's Freddy Krueger and he kills her. Like, I every time I watch this film, I just get so upset and so depressed because, like, you just think Nancy Thompson is gonna survive and she doesn't. She dies. Like, she is the main character from the original film, and they kill her off at the end of the third film. Like, that's how you do it. Like, I'm not naming any names. Scream. Like, that's how your movie has stakes. Like, to kill off Nancy Thompson, that your main character dies so the franchise can live on, that is just so hardcore. It's so badass. And, you know, I think had Patricia Arquette been in an Nightmare on Elm Street 4, I think this franchise would have been a completely different story to what we have now. And I think that's because, like Nancy Thompson dies so that Kristen can carry on the legacy, which is just absolutely fantastic. And it's kind of nice that she dies, but I think she dies as well because she knows that these kids will be fine without her now, and they've fought off, the monster, and she just like gives her life to protect these kids, which is just like so Nancy Thompson-esque. And yeah, Nancy Thompson in this film, like there's some films you watch like Scream, where I'm not a Scream hater, guys. I actually adore Scream, but I'm just a bit sourpuss about 3, 5, and 6. So you have to excuse me dragging them right now. But so say Scream, for example, you have like Sydney in Scream 5. She doesn't need to be there. There's no reason for Sydney to be in that film. And then you have Scream 6, where similarly, there's no reason for Gail to be in that film. The film's completely fine to breathe on their own. They don't really add anything to it except getting people to the cinema because it's Sidney Prescott. Now, in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, with Nancy Thompson, she adds to the film, and like she is needed to be there because she's passing on that torch. And like that's how you pass the torch. I think, like, honestly, all these people coming and doing these legacy sequels, go and watch Nightmare on Elm Street 3 because that was like the original legacy sequel, because it is honestly like a game of Dungeons and Dragons. You've got Nancy Thompson, who, she is taking hypnosil because she doesn't want to dream anymore. She goes away to college, like she studies dreams, like she is a professional in dreaming. And then you mix that with Kristen, who's got this magical dream gift where she can bring people into her dreams, and you have them fighting like Freddy Krueger together until her time's finally up, and like she gives her life so these new kids can, outlive Freddy, which is all for nothing in the fourth one because they all die anyway. But not the point. The point is Nancy Thompson like dies for this franchise, and we just don't give Nancy Thompson enough credit. And I absolutely need a Halloween 2018 rendition of A Nightmare on Elm Street with Nancy Thompson and Robert Englund. Just give it to me because I need Nancy Thompson back in my life. I think that Nancy Thompson is my favorite final girl of all time. I think she's such a bad bitch, and yeah, I mean, I know she does die, but in my head, in my own headcanon, Nancy Thompson is alive and she does not die in the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. So, Freddy Krueger in this film, let's discuss it. I think, like I said before, this is Robert Englund's, I think, best performance of Freddy, and I think this is the best Freddy look. And I just think this is kind of the last evil Freddy we see, because this is the last big hurrah before, we have Welcome to Primetime, Bitch, which was probably the pinnacle moment where this franchise shifted, because I think a lot of that was ad-libbed by Rob Englund, and that is kind of where we see Rob Englund coming into himself and, really being this like culture icon that it was Freddy Krueger. But then equally with that, the franchise does shift after this film. So you have a Nightmare on Elm Street 4, we've got like Freddy Krueger wearing the glove, and then it just gets more sillier and sillier and more meta as it goes along. Whereas in this film, I think the tone suits it just enough, and the puns with the kills and stuff like that, it's all done just enough because the film has that fantasy element of like Dungeons and Dragons, and it's called Dream Warriors, for God's sake. Like it's the campness of that. They're this like they're fighting a dream demon, and there has to be that fantasy element, and with that, it's going to be that comedic element, and it's a bunch of teenagers, so there's going to be like puns and things like that. So I think compared to obviously like a Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which I believe has like the darkest tone out of all of them, this one is that perfect medium before it goes a bit too camp, in my opinion, because I personally love A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I really do. I think it's like such a good 80s like MTV vibes. However, after that, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and 6 are just like goddamn awful, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but yeah, Freddy Krueger in this film just absolutely fantastic. I think the makeup is fantastic. The kills, especially, are a lot darker than what we've seen before. I mean, we have the kill with the character who's struggling with a drug addiction, and so Freddy manifests himself to have, instead of like a claw, it's a um instead of a claw, it's a glove with syringes on, and her track marks have like suckers on. And then, Jennifer, whose head is smashed into the TV. And the worst one of all is the puppet kill. I think, is it Philip, who is a puppeteer, and Freddy turns him into his own puppet, and the arteries and veins in his arms are the strings. And, you know, Freddy is this puppeteer and throws him through the window while the kids watch. Like, that is really dark and really messed up, and I think this is the first time in the franchise where we can see Freddy using kind of the traits of the kids and their personalities as a way to kill them, which isn't really seen before, because I think in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, it's not really about a group of kids, it's more about just Jesse and some of Jesse's friends, but it's obviously more about that, Jesse's mind and things like that. So it's just done so brilliantly, and I think that was the perfect way to market this film as well. It's kind of like that group of friends, and everyone has their own personalities. And what would that be if you were to be murdered? Like for me, for instance, if I was in that on Elm Street, like it'd be something horror related. How that would go down, I don't know. But absolutely, I just think, as it goes from Freddy Krueger's point of view, I think this is his best film, and I think this is the last time we see him at his best when it comes to like being scary and being like a mean old man with the claws. Apart from A New Nightmare, but The New Nightmare is its own in its own league, and I will never ever ever accept slander from about A New Nightmare ever. Honestly, keep my wife's name out your mouth. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street, New Nightmare so much. So keep my wife's name out of your mouth, please. So the kid wise, we've got Kincaid, who is you know, the muscly guy who is always put in a quiet room for running his mouth, and absolutely king love him. Taryn is the lady with the drug addiction, and then you've got Will in the wheelchair, and then you've got Jennifer, and you've got Joey, who's the silent, horny guy who just wants to sleep with the nurses. Now, the kids in this film, it's brilliant because you can't tell from the start like who's going to die and who's not, and the film kind of sets out on such a high note, because I think in a lot of these films you can, especially going forward from the third one, you can start to kind of tell who is going to make it and who is just like plot fodder. But I think the group is so well done and well written, and we see them hanging out, like playing Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. It's just so fleshed out, and they do feel like this little small family, that it makes it even more heartbreaking when one of them dies, but you also can't tell who's going to die first. Like Taryn, for instance, I would have assumed that she'd survived this film, but she dies. And, Will in the wheelchair, I assumed it would have died first, not because he's in a wheelchair, but because he's probably the weakest of them all, because he's just not very well fleshed out. His only thing is that he plays Dungeons and Dragons and he's a wizard master. But then, you see that, like, progression, and then you shocked when they die because you think, oh, you know. So as a whole, as a group, they're all fantastic, and essentially they all have their own dream powers, which can be a little bit cringe at some points, but then again, it was the 80s, and I guess that was just what was good there. You've got Joey, who can talk. His dream power is that he can scream and talk, and he is loud in his dreams, and that's what ultimately saves the group. Taryn is just like a leather mummy in hers, and that's her whole vibe. So good for her. And then Kincaid is like extra strong, and Will can walk, and Jennifer. I don't think we ever learn Jennifer's dream power. We don't, which is quite sad. I wonder what that would be. Maybe it was just that she can act. I don't know. Kristen is that she can do like backflips and shit, which is pretty cool. Um, And then apart from the kids in this film, we also have obviously we've got Nancy Thompson who works at the Dream Hospital. We also have the doctor who she's like a battle axe and everyone hates her. But honestly, she was literally just doing her job and like justice for that character. Because everyone thinks she's such a cow, such a bitch. But if you look at it from her point of view, this random girl fresh out of college is coming into the hospital and being like, guys, take these drugs. Take these drugs because I know a man in your dream is trying to kill you. You know, in the real world, if this was the NHS, they'd be like, who is you? Like, who are you? Like, you can't just give kids random drugs. Like, I think you're on drugs. I think you have been hanging around with, with Taryn because, girl, come on now. Come on now. And then we have Nancy's boyfriend who also works at the hospital. And yeah, just the world it's so small and the characters there isn't too many characters. You don't get lost, but it's still such a solid film. And also I forgot to mention, so this is where we learn about Freddy Krueger's backstory a little bit more. So we meet a nun. It's probably the weirdest part of this film. We meet a nun who basically says that Freddy Krueger's mom was a nun that lived in the hospital, worked in the hospital, sorry, and she's locked in overnight, and then she is like assaulted and attacked by loads of men in the asylum, and then she becomes pregnant, and that child that she gives birth is Freddy Krueger. So he's like the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs, and we just learn that is basically what happens with Freddy Krueger, which again, it's kind of credit to this film because you can have films that explore the backstory of characters and it ruins the character completely. Like Rob Zombie's Halloween spends an entire half a film explaining why Michael Myers is the way that he is, and it's not very effective. And if anything, it's like, girl, we don't need it. We don't need that at all. Then, if you look at Nightmare on Elm Street 3, this little tidbit of information is actually just really interesting. And it doesn't damage the character at all because you just think, oh, wow, he had a rough start in life. And then you can still imagine him growing up to being a child murderer who then becomes a dream demon. I know it sounds weird. But genuinely, like, you can see that happening, and power to them because it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So with that being said, what do I rate this film overall? So I'm going to give this film a solid 5 out of 5, and I'm going to tell you to do press play because I think this film is way better than the original, way better than the sequel. I think this film is the best the franchise has to offer, just in terms of story and tone and, yeah, storytelling in general, filmmaking, it's all there. It's a fantastic piece of horror cinema. I'm being deadly serious. It genuinely is. And you wouldn't think that a third Nightmare on Elm Street film would be, but I genuinely think it's like the best this franchise has to offer. So I would definitely check this film out 1,000%. Thank you for joining me this week on Don't Press Play. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a review. Please rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to download the episode and just share me around with your horror nerds and let them know where I am at this strange corner of the internet. Keep an eye out for our next episode. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We jumped from Texas to Elm Street, so it could be absolutely anywhere next week. I'm not really on a mission to kind of do seasons and stuff like that. I'm just doing whatever film I want to talk about and seeing where we go. But until then, sleep tight. Don't let Freddy Krueger bite. See you later. Bye.